Hey everyone, welcome to the moon forecast for the new moon we have coming up in Gemini. I'm Kendall with the Bohemian Tarot Girl.
I'm Amy with Wild Reawakening, and this is the time of the month that we get together to talk about this new moon energy that's coming in. This one is happening on June 6th at 5:37 a.m. Pacific. So go ahead and look at where that is, or go ahead and change that time for wherever you are in the world. And this new moon is happening at 16 degrees, which means the sun and the moon are both in Gemini at 16 degrees. So if you want to take a look at where this is affecting you in your chart, go ahead and check out 16 degrees of Gemini and which house that is in. And that will give you an idea of kind of the themes that might be kind of illuminated and amplified for you during this time.
There is a lot of that Gemini energy going on. I mean, we have, what was it, 6 planets all in Gemini during this time, and it's got a lot of air in it. How are you feeling about it?
Yeah. So um, Gemini is a really interesting energy, and it's very different from the types of energies that we have been dealing with. We've kind of ushered in a little bit of it with that last full moon that we had in Sagittarius because it was the moon opposing this Gemini energy. But now we have some other planets that have shifted into Gemini, and that is really amplifying this because not only do we have the sun, the moon, we have Venus, which is conjunct both of them, which through June 4th through the 6th is what they call it Kazemi, because Venus and the sun are conjunct. So that's really amplifying the Venusian energy that's coming in and all the themes around that, which we'll talk about. We also have Mercury, and then we have there's just so much, and these are your personal planets. So these aren't like the long-standing outer planets that tend to move slower. These are all like very much about you and where you're at right now and personal themes that are going to be coming up and highlighting. So I think it can be really a positive and interesting time and like really forward progression and really good time to kind of get clear on where you're at and how you communicate with the world and what your personal expression. The only other thing with Gemini to look out for is that it's such a mental sign. It's very cerebral,
Mhm.
and so heavy Gemini placements and a
Yeah.
lot of Gemini energy can sometimes make your brain spin a lot and make you overthink and overanalyze and have so much happening in your mental capacity that it can feel overstimulating and overwhelming. But it's also a really good time for like new ideas, it's communicating those ideas and getting clear on how you speak and how you present yourself to the world. And so it can be I think it'll be really interesting to see how it unfolds and harnessing some of that.
Definitely. When I was, looking at this energy, definitely finding your value came to mind as the theme for me. And so just being able to pick up on the energy of really knowing who you are and how you stand during this time. And I can see how that is that very much that thinking energy that Gemini is going to bring in during this time and really making sure that you're making that connection and bringing it in. And it,
Mhm.
when you pair it with having that, Kazemi of, with Venus and the energy of it being in Gemini, and that happens every about 9 months or so. We do have that where Venus comes and is in alignment with the sun, and sitting there kind of, blending together themselves. So but, this time when we're sitting in this Gemini energy, it's really focusing in on that really that thought process that we have to go through. So, I think it's going to be a lot of us maybe kind of hemming and hawing over some things. And then hopefully we're going to come to some resolution as we come through with this energy in this week. So,
I think, I mean, Venus is the planet, we talk about Venus a lot because Venus is a planet of love and it's all your money and the good things that
yep.
you want in life. And so with it being amplified by the sun and this moon, it's really giving you the opportunity to really look at not just how you love others, but how you love yourself and
Definitely.
what is important to you and where your values are. And, like your level of confidence and how you approach your relationships. Um, and so there's so much more to that than just like how you participate in relationships, even though Gemini in itself is uh a very communal energy in a
Mhm.
way, very much, your relationship with other people and how you communicate with other people. And so it's this interesting kind of pairing of how you feel about yourself and are you projecting yourself to others in a way that feels authentic and clear and in alignment with who you are and what you want. So I don't know. I think that there's the potential to have it be like this really beautiful analysis of yourself and how you fit in the world. What do you think?
I totally agree. I do like, and I need to take I haven't had time because looked at the charts and I kind of wrote up my notes, and here I am now recording it, it with you. But I need to look back personally, back to 2020 when we did the Venus retrograde in Gemini. And I kind of want to see what energy was happening during that time and what themes were going to come up. Because I think that is a connection, when we're looking at the, connections of this time. So, and seeing what played out during that time and then what has progressed during that time, because now we're sitting here with this Venus and Gemini energy again. So,
Mhm. Yeah, and that was, I believe, the last time the sun was conjunct Gemini, wasn't it? And so
yes.
it's kind of like a closing out of a portal or a cycle because we've now gone through the whole process during those 4 years of the same themes that happened. And so it's like, look at what has transpired since June of 2020, and how you've grown in the ways that you love yourself and how you've grown in your confidence and how you've grown in what you value in your relationships and partnerships, and how you communicate and express your emotions or your needs or your thought processes. And so I think that's a really good point to, it's always good, and this is totally like a random thought that just came in because that happens all the time, right? Um, but it's really the astrology. A lot of people are like, oh, well, astrology isn't real. Astrology isn't a science. And really, what it is it's a study of cycles and patterns
Mhm.
associated with certain planetary alignments and themes. And so I think it's really interesting to kind of look back at the cycle and the pattern and connect the dots, sometimes backwards, so that you can look at it in a forward trajectory as well.
Definitely. I love looking at the patterns. I really, because we miss so much on the day to day, right? If you don't look at the patterns in your life, then you're never going to see themes or, the need to shift things. You really have to look outside of that and start recognizing that piece. Um, because I'm going to do some work and look at the themes and see what comes up during this time, right? And off the top of my head, it's not. So I have to go down and sit with myself and try to really like figure out what themes are playing in my life during that time and how have they shifted? How have they not shifted during that time?
Mhm.
Because if they've been stagnant, that can also tell me that I'm not moving where I need to move, right? So I need to readjust some things in my life. So, do you
Yeah.
know any of your themes that came up? Or have you?
I might have to sit with that. I feel like there's been just overall for me, there's been, I don't even recognize the person I was in 2020. Um, and it's interesting. You think about that kind of stuff because you don't see the progression from day to day. And then it's like you don't recognize how much everything is shifting until there's been some time that's passed. And then you're like, I don't even remember.
Mhm.
Like trying to remember back to June 2020 and what I was doing. And I mean, everybody was in the midst of pandemic. So it's hard to know, like, there's almost like this this subconscious block
Yeah.
to what was like all a blur. But I know that since that time, when I think back to who I was at that time, so much has changed that I don't even recognize who that person was anymore. Um, so I'd be curious to see, like, leave in the comments if you're watching this, like, how do you feel you've changed since 2020, and what's illuminated? I know my whole definition, maybe not the definition, but my whole view of love has changed, and
Mhm.
um, my whole self-confidence and how I present myself to the world, and how much more comfortable I am in my own skin, and also um, the ability to get up on these videos and talk.
That's
Like, those
true.
were all things that were not even a part of my life back then. So it's really good question. I'm gonna have to give that some more thought.
As am I. So I think we all need to take some time and dig because Venus is such a big player in this
Mhm.
energy. And so it's a perfect time to reevaluate all the things that come into play in our life, like you said, that we love, that bring creativity in our life, that bring abundance in our life, and really focus in on, this pattern and the cycles that we've seen come around. So, yeah. I like this is a part of the moon that I like. So, what else do we have here? We have Saturn um, squaring the moon, and it's in Pisces, and it's giving me this vibe of it's really gonna like we're gonna get kind of like a reality check, right? Like we're gonna get kind of like a not maybe not a slap in the face, but you know what I mean? Like something's gonna come up and really tell us like, oh, here it is. Look at this, pay attention. Really know that whatever path that you're on is either right or wrong for you. How are you feeling about this energy?
Oh. This Saturn being in Pisces, right where it's at, because it's at what 18 degrees. So it's almost exactly squaring not only the moon, but also the sun and also Venus, because they're all sitting together at this point. And so it's a big square. And the
Yeah.
square is a more tense energy. And Saturn is already the planet that has the energy of being kind of somber, or like kind of comes in to squash all the fun, is how
Yeah.
I it's very much by the rules, and it's very much about order, and it's very much about the process of things, and just kind of wants to come in and lay things down in the way that it the rules should be like. And it's already in kind of this weird placement, because Pisces is all about intuition and being kind of like go with the flow and free flowing, and not having a lot of concrete structure to Pisces energy. So it's already kind of a little weird. Pisces being all about your intuition and spirituality, and that's not really the very compatible with the themes of Saturn. So having this square Gemini, which is a very fast moving energy and a very mental energy, and um, having this like tense alignment with this intuitive order. It just feels, I mean, like you said, it's a reality check. It's like throwing on the brakes. It's kind of giving you a time to pause. And I think that during that pause, and that kind of period of feeling like things aren't moving as quickly, it's giving you the opportunity to create a better alignment between your intuition and your mental process, kind of like head over heart, but
Yeah.
so much heart, but more like your inner knowing. Um, and making sure that what you're thinking is in alignment, how you're communicating is in alignment, if you're speaking the truth, if you're coming from a place of being intentional with your words. Like, you don't just want to spout off anything that is coming to mind right now, because it will have an impact. And this alignment made me think of the four agreements, which is why I was looking it up before we got on. But one of the four agreements is to be impeccable with your word. And I think right now, especially, it's going to be really important that you say what you mean and you mean what you say, and you make it as clear as possible, because it can be kind of skewed, or you could just run off with something and spout off a bunch of words that you regret later. So making sure that it's all aligned and centered, and that you're very precise.
Yes.
Kind
Well,
of
and
what I got.
it's interesting that we were talking about the law of assumption prior to this. And to me, I mean, that plays closely, obviously, into manifesting. And it was looking at it in almost like a different way, and more of a little bit of a down to earth, I would say, way. Um, and so to me, this energy really aligns with it, because there's lots of energy that's having us connect to our higher self with this. Um, this connection, but there's this need to make sure that you are speaking your truth, that you're really living in that authentic self. And it's all tied into like what you're bringing in and what you're manifesting into this world. So I
Because
don't know.
there's that, yeah, that goes along with, there's that quote, and it's, what is it? It's um words are spells, and that's why it's called spelling.
Yep.
I always come back to that, because if you go through like the whole law of physics, and the idea that we are consciously or subconsciously creating our reality at any given point, the things that you speak are so important. And when I work with people, especially, I'll catch the things that they're saying and be like, well, this is what you're saying, and this is why this is kind of coming to pass. Or why, maybe, like, do you really believe that? And usually when we say things, it's like we don't recognize necessarily how we speak all the time, or the things that we say that uh, are telling. It's like giving yourself away. It's like telling your belief processes, or these things that you've taken on as being truth, without really thinking that they're truth. So it does go along with just being super intentional with not only what you think, but what you say and what you are consciously creating. And the law of um, assumption, what's that word again? The law of assumption is basically like what you assume is going to happen is kind of how things are going to play out. And it goes so much deeper than just being like, well, I assume that this is going to happen. It's like, what is playing in the background of your subconscious? It is really the driving force, because so much is not something that we're always aware of. So really digging a little bit deeper into the underbelly of the things that you speak, the things that you say, the things that you think is super important, especially during this time,
Yes.
during a new moon, that we like this one that we have. And new moons are, we typically use new moon energy as what we're focusing on creating, in the direction that we're focusing on moving towards. And this one in particular is just super important to be very, very clear and intentional on
Yes. I
what
do.
you're.
No, I'm with you. I really think that this moon is, if you're setting intentions, it's key to be like really on point and really know where you're wanting to go, and really making sure that you're bringing in what you want. Um, I think if you kind of like let some other things rule over, what you connect with spirit, that's where some things are going to shift southly for you. You need to be really thoughtful on what you're doing during this time. So,
And really believe it's possible.
yep.
That's the thing that trips people up a lot is, they create their vision boards, and they, set their intentions, and they make their wish lists of the things that they want to bring into their life, or create, well, I hate to say goals, because I think it's a little different than a goal, but some people consider it goals. Like, I'm going to have this and I'm going to have that. But if you don't believe that it's possible for you for whatever reason, like, that's your own roadblock. Like, you're your own worst enemy when it comes to moving in a certain direction or attracting certain things to yourself. So
Yep. And with that, we have Jupiter and Pluto action going on, which I really just like, to me, that is about self transformation. That is really about bringing in your own, like empowering yourself, right? To make the to change up your world, I guess, and to really know that it's doable for you. And so I think there might be some energy, probably a little stagnant coming into this week. And then as we start getting closer to that new moon and you start thinking about the intentions that you want to set, you're going to see some openings into how you can kind of see yourself moving into that new life that you want to create or the intentions that you want to set. So things might get a little bit clearer as we come into, this next, like the weekend with the energy. How are you
Yeah.
feeling?
Yeah.
Am I just a
Jupiter.
little hopeful?
Yeah, no. Yeah, it's Jupiter expands what it comes in contact with, and Pluto is transformation. And so when those are in any kind of alignment or configuration with each other, they're kind of having this conversation like, okay, so how are you going to transform? Because that's Pluto. It's like, what are we transforming? What are we destroying and recreating? What is being shifted and elevated? And then you have Jupiter coming in and being like, let's do this on overdrive.
Hmm.
Let's really focus on that. And so I think that it is um, really creating expansion in whatever part of your life you are in the process of transforming. And that can be really powerful, or it can be kind of overwhelming and detrimental. And not detrimental in a way where I mean it's something bad, but it can feel I don't know, anytime Pluto is activated, it has the potential of destruction before creation, is kind of how I think of it. So there may be some things in your life that are kind of not going the way that you want, and it's really a time to pivot and not and to let things fall away um, as needed. And
Hmm.
there's a level of trust in that. Pluto is a very you need to trust. You need to put some trust into the energy of Pluto and how it's going to shapeshift your life because it will.
No, I mean, with that always gives people anxiety because we think about like very much like things can break down and it can be an extreme breakdown. Other times things can shift and they're not so extreme. And it's really about, being able to look to the good and know that it's going to work out in your favor in the end, even though right now it might just seem like the world just exploded. You do have to take a step back. So, there's some energy in this moon that might give people some anxiety. And so it's just really about just making sure that you're grounded. If you need to physically ground yourself, take some time, go step outside, clear your head, and really focus on just connecting with the energy of the earth. That always helps me if I'm feeling anxious. And so just know that, sometimes we just have to take a step back and focus on that bigger picture of where we want to go. So I do think like the overall energy for the moon is really good for intentions. It does have, you know, that chance of maybe you might see some really large changes, which, some people might look as a great thing. Other people might be a little bit frazzled by it. So it's okay, but just take it all in stride if you do experience anything and make sure to just connect with yourself. So,
Yeah. And also, it's really going to depend on which part of your chart is being amplified.
yes.
Like for me, this is in my ninth house, and ninth house is about travel and how you present yourself to the world and I can see in areas of my life like there's really an expansion happening where I'm becoming more um clear and concise with the work that I'm doing and how I am presenting myself in this. And that's also like my Venus is also in ninth house. So there is an element of that being. So it really is going to depend on that part of your chart. Whereas in your chart, it might have to do with your second house. I think that's where yours is, right? Which has to do with like your finances and your stability and your that kind of stuff. So um I don't know. I just there, Pluto Pluto is an interesting one, and just to kind of circle back to that for a little bit, but it also like being trine in Jupiter, and they're both in the early degrees. Jupiter in Gemini and Pluto in Aquarius. Uh, it's also like one of those aspects, like Pluto can also be a big power player, and really help you to harness your own personal power and to step into that and almost to elevate yourself into a new capacity. So it's not always just about destruction. It also is about like really empowering yourself and uplifting yourself and awakening like new levels of your transformation. So just something to keep in mind, you know, as this is going on, like there may be parts of your life where you're called into a higher capacity and, you know, like maybe in positions that you hadn't considered before.
Yep. Just keep an
So,
open mind. I feel like that is in general what the universe is asking right now. Just keep those doors ready and open. That way you can step forward into, a new area in your life when it's ready for you. So that's
yep.
what I've been trying to tell myself.
Yes.
Leave some doors ajar.
Yeah. There's some ideas and communication and things that are coming in because that's such a huge part of this moon is the information and the communication. And you could get unexpected communication. You could get communication that propels you in a different direction.
Yep.
You get unexpected communication about love or your finances, or I mean, there's so many positive things that can come out of this that can really propel you in different directions and open doors. So be ready.
I know. All right. Well, anything else you want to add or I feel like
Um, The only other thing I had is that Mars is going to be changing signs, and Mars being this action-oriented planet, it's been in Aries, which is very fast-paced and wants to get moving and get things going, and it's going to be shifting into Taurus. And I think that that can be very beneficial, especially with all of this air energy, because it's going to give kind of a groundedness um, to and a little bit of a slowdown
Mhm.
to really like create and solidify some of this forward action to make it more stabilized. And I think that that can be really helpful to create like a solid foundation or to have a solid foundation to move from. So that's the only other major shift that I was coming in.
No, I like that reminder. That's a good one. All right, everyone. Do you have anything coming up, like any classes?
I do have some classes on the horizon, and I am finalizing dates for that. And one will be an astrology class on how to read your chart and what to look for in case you want to look at other people's charts. So it'll be very beneficial. So if you would like more information on that, you can follow us on Facebook at Wild Reawakening, the group. We do have a page, but the group is where more information will be easily found. So
All right, everyone. Have a great new moon, and we will see you next time for the full moon. Bye, everyone.